Have you ever considered that we are living in a unique time, that something world-changing is about to happen, and that it might concern you? If so, you're in the right place. Keep listening, and you'll hear thought-provoking views behind the news that point to a new and better future for all. Many people now sense that humanity is not alone. So consider this. If the Christ or the Buddha walked among us today as modern men, would we recognize them? What would they be saying? And most importantly, would we listen? Every Sunday on this program, Share International Radio, we'll examine extraordinary events that are unfolding behind the headline news. This may be the message of hope you've been waiting for. And now, welcome to this week's show.
This week, and I will be speaking with Betsy Whitfill. Betsy is a correspondent for Share International magazine, a freelance writer, and a public speaker who spent the last 30 years helping to prepare the public for the mission of Maitreya, the world teacher for the age of Aquarius. She also hosts a transmission group, both of which topics we will be covering during the show. Just a bit of background for any new listeners. Our program, Share on the Air Radio, talks about the presence of great teachers in the world today who have come to help us at this critical hour. At their head is Lord Maitreya, that's M-A-I-T-R-E-Y-A, Lord Maitreya, who is expected by all the great religious under their various names, such as the Christ, the Messiah, the Imam Mahdi, etc., and also the new Buddha foretold by Gautama Buddha some 2,500 years ago. Betsy has actually met Maitreya on several occasions, and the Master Jesus has put his self-portrait in her home. So she's here to talk with us today to tell us about these stories and also some other experiences she has had and the insights that she has gleaned from it. Welcome, Betsy.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, you're more than welcome. I'm happy to greet you. So let's start with how all this got started. How did you begin your work with Share International?
Well, it was a long, long time ago. Anyway, I was typically just a mother running carpools. I was interested in New Age topics in the 70s and the early 80s, and I was following a number of schools of thought, and one of them was the Alice Bailey books. And I had read a book that was called The Reappearance of the Christ and the Masters of Wisdom. I was doing all this while running carpools and spending time at New Age bookstores. On one of those occasions, I found a book called The Reappearance of the Christ and the Masters of Wisdom by one Benjamin Creme. I recognized the title and thought, well, this is interesting. Someone else has a perspective on this immense occasion. So I bought the book and I started reading it. And I was also keeping a dream journal at the time, as was suggested by one of the schools of thought I was following. So I was reading this wonderful book, and it was so immediate in its urgent call for change in the world, for love in the world. And Benjamin Creme Q&A format answered a lot of the questions that I had had as a child and growing up in the Catholic tradition. So I was reading this book, keeping my dream journal, and one night I had a dream in which a tall man in a turban and a white gown came to me and asked if I would do the heart-to-heart for my village. I don't remember saying anything, but I'm sure I said, sure, whatever.
Did you have any idea what that meant at the time?
None, but it sounded good. So I must have said yes, because I wrote it down in my dream journal the next morning, and I went back to reading Benjamin Krem's book. And the more I read of that book and read about Maitreya, the more I thought, I would like to get involved in this. However, this is a big limb to go out on, and there was nothing in any of the materials that I had read other than Benjamin Krem's and Alice Bailey's. And there certainly was no Return of the Christ information floating around in my town. So I thought, well, gee, I'd like to help, but I'm going to have to dig a little further and find out if this is really true, or is this another dreamy New Age book. So I saw from the back of the book that Benjamin Krem lectured in Los Angeles area from time to time and gave the phone number. I called and found out that he was going to speak at a church in Santa Monica on a certain date in June. And I decided that I would call and get my sister to drive me there from LA, and then announce to my husband that I was going to California to listen to a lecture about the return of the Christ. My husband, who is so dear to me and since is very understanding, at the time was shocked, probably mortified, and said, "But what about the children?" Needless to say, the Beatles were going to India at the time and never coming back, and they were doing whatever it is they were doing. So he was a little bit nervous about it all. However, the trip was created. I went out there. My sister and I went to St. Michael's by the Sea, where Benjamin Krem was going to give a talk, and it was, of course, sponsored by what was then called Terra Center, which was a group of people in the Los Angeles area who had responded to his information and set up a small organization that would advertise his talks when he came.
Yeah, I just want to make one point about that, Betsy. There is now several offshoots of what used to be called Terra Center in several countries, and absolutely all of the work of telling the story is being done by volunteers, people like you and me who have related to the message and who want to get the word out. So there's very, very little organization involved, but quite a lot of volunteer work. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were sitting in the middle of this lovely little church, and the place was packed. Had no idea what would happen. But Benjamin Krem walks in and goes up to the front of the altar area and sits in a chair facing the audience. Nothing is said. It's dead silence in there. We're all just staring at him. And he started going eye to everyone in the audience. And when he, I guess, came to me, I saw this beautiful face that was the face of the man in my dream. And his face was there where Benjamin Krem's figure should be. And there was glorious light everywhere. And I think I must have slipped out of my mind or something, because I felt like I came to, and there were these beautiful eyes staring right at me, and I was crying. There were tears pouring down my cheeks, and yet my cheeks were hurting from grinning so hard. So it seemed to go on for a long, long time, and I got a little embarrassed after a while. The light was so bright also. I had to move my one eye behind the woman in front of me just to kind of give an eye a rest. And it occurred to me that I was, this had gone on long enough. And as soon as I thought that, Maitreya's face, or the face at the time, nodded, and it ended, and Benjamin Krem went on to other faces in the audience. So for me, that was my verification that this was the man in my dream, that he was Maitreya, and that I had agreed to help, and that the way I should help is simply talk heart to heart to people. So that was, I invited Benjamin Creme. He came to my city 3 or 4 or 5 times after that, and it has been going ever since. And I started a meditation group, and it has been the center of my life since then.
So now we know what the meaning of the heart-to-heart was in your dream.
Yes. Yes.
Did he say anything to you while you were at the encounter with Mr. Creme?
No, not a word. It was just an extraordinary experience of, I think you would call it love. My heart melted. I was so happy and so uplifted. It was just wonderful. That nothing needed to be said. And then the final nod that Maitreya gave me, in retrospect, seemed like it was, well, was that enough?
And you had your sign. That's a great story.
Yeah.
You know, we had Patricia Pichon on, a journalist in England, on the December 6th program, and she described experiences very much like the one you've had. And it reminds me of mine when you mentioned that. When you said your heart melted, that's exactly what happened to me. I literally was pounding out of my chest as I heard, I saw Maitreya's or Mr. Creme's eyes coming closer and closer to me. He was 3 people away. He was 2 people away. Oh my God, I'm next. And yeah. Stay with us, listeners. You're listening to Share on the Air Radio, and we'll be back with our guest after the break, Betsy Whitfill. Hang in there. Thanks, Betsy.
The cutting edge of conscious radio. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Maitreya's Mission, the book by Benjamin Creme, is a riveting exploration of life ahead. It reveals how the world teacher, Maitreya, and other ancient guardians of the human race are emerging now and are showing us how to release our divine potential. Investigate for yourself at shareontheairradio.org. That's shareontheairradio.org. shareontheairradio.org.
Come heal yourself. What is healing? Healing is nothing but connecting with your all-knowing higher self that already has solutions to all your problems and is always there to guide you. Through this show, we help you to connect with that you are and tap into that innate potential you have to transform your life and fly high. Please join me, your host Monica Goyal, every Sunday, 7 p.m. Pacific. Namaste.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Hi, this is Julie Geigel.
I'm Maggie Chula.
And I'm Catherine Glass.
And we're the Psychic Angel Channelers. Join us every week here on OMTimes Radio for Angel Talk Tuesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time.
The angels have heard your call and are here to help.
Are you ready to receive?
Remember your magnificence with Angel Talk Tuesday.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hello again. You're listening to Share on the Air Radio. And we invite you to go to the Facebook page to get more information about many of the things that we will be talking about today. You'll find those things on Share on the Air Radio Facebook page. Betsy, I promised our listeners the story of how Jesus put an image on your wall. Let's talk about that and then show the relationship between Jesus and Maitreya.
Yes, it was a real surprise for me. This was in 2003, in late June. I was walking down the stairs at my house, and on the stairwell, I saw something up on the wall that I had not noticed before. It was dark outside, and there was a light at the front door, shining on the front door, left over from Christmas, that my husband liked it. I thought it was a bit bright and wanted it down, but I gave in. And anyway, I looked up to the right as I was coming down the stairs, and there was this pattern. I looked at it and I thought, well, it's just leaves, tree, what have you. And then as I was walking back down, I looked back at it again, and it looked like a face. But I thought, I don't think so. This is my mind or, something. So I went into my husband. I didn't say anything except asked him to come and look at something for me. And he came, and I said, look up there, and, what do you think that is? And he looked and looked and looked, and he said, there's a face, and it looks like maybe a Rembrandt. It has a Renaissance appeal. It's like an image of a face. And I said, well, who do you think that is? Or what do you think it is? He said, well, I really don't know. And I thought it would be Maitreya because, of course, we had the group here at the house. And the group had been wondering if we could have a sign, a miracle that would kind of let us all know we were, working hard and helping this work. So that spring, I took a picture of it to the Transmission Meditation Conference that we have annually, and Benjamin Krem always gives a talk back then. And I showed him the picture and asked him, whose face was this? And he asked his master, and the answer was it was Jesus. Well, I was really surprised because, I thought, well, surely it would be Maitreya. And yet, over the years, as I think about this, it's perfectly reasonable that it would be Jesus. I live in a very Christian part of the country. And if you're going to talk about the return of the Christ to Christians, it might be a little bit dicey. Many of the Christian churches have very specific requirements for the return of the Christ. And here we would be saying, well, he's already here and the world hasn't ended, and he's talking about love and Buddhism and other religions. So to me, it was a direct sign that inclusivity in terms of our spiritual nature is so very important, and that all the traditions are included in this future that humanity is to be building for itself. And of course, the Master Jesus is familiar to Christians and Muslims also, and was the vehicle for, this is according to the Ageless Wisdom teachings, was the vehicle for Maitreya to do his work in Palestine 2,000 years ago or so. He's a great senior disciple of Maitreya, a member in great standing of the spiritual hierarchy of the planet, and is in charge of the Christian groups wherever they are found. So
just a sec here. It's clear that these are actually two separate masters.
Yes. Oh. Maitreya is the master of all the masters. He is the leader of the group of masters that we call the spiritual hierarchy of this planet. And one of his disciples, one of the great masters, is the Master Jesus. There are others, of course, but he is the one who is the religious teacher for the Christian churches.
Let's make it clear what we mean by masters, Betsy.
The masters are men who have gone ahead of us in their evolution. They have been men and women like us in their past lives on this planet and have evolved spiritually, learned everything that this planet can teach them, and have evolved spiritually so they no longer need to incarnate as we do for our educational purposes. After they become masters, and that's a very specific planned path of mastery, which we are all on. We are all, most of us are pretty much at the beginning of that, but we are all heading in that direction of spiritual mastery. They are masters of the forces of nature and themselves. They are not masters in the sense of making everyone do what they say. We think of master in terms of slaves and masters. However, this is totally different. And so they are the great teachers who have overseen humans' evolution since the very beginning. And if you think of any great name in the history of the world, any great artist, musician, scientist, religious teacher, they would be disciples of one or other of these great masters. So they are teachers. They are our elder brothers, if you will. And the Master Jesus did his work for Maitreya as the vehicle for Maitreya's consciousness back in Palestine. And his great work was that he embodied the love of God for the first time in a man. So there's always been that tension between was Jesus God or man? Well, he was, of course, both. We are gods in potential. We have a soul, a spark of the divine in each of us. But the masters express what that means. They are love, they are knowledge, they are understanding, and they have the broadest consciousness that includes ideas and experiences we can't even imagine.
Which is why they're called the Masters of Wisdom.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
So, some of our people are going to be wondering where they live. Are they in another dimension? Are they here?
Yes, they are. I guess you would say in another in another dimension. They don't need to live as we do with physical bodies and have to go to work and eat 3 meals a day and do all the simple things that we have to do to keep our bodies going. They can create a body when needed to appear to disciples, for example. So you could say they are everywhere, but they are on higher levels of existence that we, most of us are not in any way aware of, but they are able to appear to us when needed or when their work requires it. If you think of all the angel experiences that you read about in the paper, where, let's say, a baby has been left in a snowdrift for 3 days, and yet is totally unharmed, that is the work of a master who kept that baby going.
Mm-hmm. Let me draw our listeners' attention to Share International magazine for a minute, because there are many, many stories printed in that magazine of such encounters, of such miracles that show how compassionate and how understanding and how infinitely wise the masters are in how they approach these appearances when they do appear to people. Lots of stories in that Share International magazine. The website for that is share, SHARE -international.org. And the current issues and previous issues are always on the website, in abridged version, mind you, but you can read many of those stories there, and they are fascinating, aren't they, Betsy?
Oh, they are. They are. So many people have had experiences, and to their astonishment and delight.
Mm-hmm. And why do you think they're doing this? Appearing to people and helping out in these, desperate situations and what have you. I guess we'll have to talk about that on the other side of the break, and we'll be talking about Maitreya's plan for rescuing the planet as well, in terms of why Maitreya's presence matters.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
Want to help humanity and the planet? Transmission meditation is a simple but powerful way for you and 2 or more friends to do just that and dramatically accelerate your own spiritual growth. You can read the book on transmission meditation, free online. Visit shareontheairradio.org for details. That's shareontheairradio.org. shareontheairradio.org.
Welcome to The Gathering Around My Kitchen Table on Equilarium FM, Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join my guests as we integrate spirituality into everyday reality with vibrant conversations, inspired interviews, and my latest channeled guidance to inspire and brighten your day. I'm Claire Johnson, and together we'll be raising vibrations across the nations.
What if business could be fun? What if business is the adventure of living? What are you choosing? Where do you do business that makes it easier, more fun, or more joyful for you? We'd love to see where you do business. Connect with us on Instagram at Joy of Business or Twitter at Joy of Business. And share your pictures with hashtags BusinessDoneWhere and Joy of Business. Let's change the world with business.
If you've ever said, I do want it all. I do want happiness. I do want love. And I do desire the happily ever after fairy tale life, then this show is for you. Join me, Dame Nicole Brandon, for my internationally acclaimed show, Bridal Talk Radio, every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, where I'll bring you the top experts in the fields of communication, money, relationships, finance, pleasure, play, travel, sexuality, parenting, real estate, adventure, comfort, care, passion, and love.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
Welcome back, everyone. We're talking with Betsy Whitfill about why Maitreya's presence matters. Just before we go on, though, I'd like to make a point of reminding you that this information that we present is being done on a volunteer basis, and we present it for your consideration only. If it has the ring of truth, if it makes you curious to find out more, and if you want to talk to your friends about it, just by all means. It is for your consideration, and we hope for more hope and expectancy in the world that we may soon see Maitreya and some of the other masters who are now walking among us. So, Betsy, why does Maitreya's presence matter at this time?
For me, the idea of a leader with a global consciousness is absolutely essential for humanity to have a vision of our future. We have such a fractured world. We have people everywhere who are in trouble, who have no place to sleep, who don't have enough food. We have so many serious issues. Our environment is in trouble. We all want a future for our children, but we can't seem to find a leader who will take us there. Hope and change is a wonderful mantra. It is a call from humanity for a future that we can all believe in. There is no one man or woman that I know of who has the kind of breadth of experience and knowledge and wisdom and vision that Maitreya has.
Well, of course, with his status as master and having gone beyond our limited human thinking, he does know so much more. He is omniscient. And so he knows how to speak to our hearts. And I believe that he will form a catalyst for all of the longing and the cry of humanity for this better world.
Yes, I think, as you say, the human heart is the big point here. Everyone who is living today has a desire for the basic necessities of life, just to live, to maybe raise your children, to create something for the world. This is a human desire, and it resides in the human heart. Maitreya speaks to the human heart, which is the same all over the world. Language, what people look like, how they live, makes no difference at all to him. It is that human heart that is his value in humanity. And when you have, as you have, and many others have an experience of Maitreya, it is your heart that is responding. As you said, it's pounding in your chest. You're crying and laughing at the same time. It is a heart experience rather than an intellectual experience or some sort of dream experience. So that global consciousness, the ability to speak to the human heart in individual languages, all traditions, to stimulate that heart response of love is Maitreya's aim on Declaration Day, and believe me, he can do it.
Yeah, well, we'll be talking about that towards the end of the show, and that's a really big topic. Why don't we fill in for our listeners Maitreya's priorities briefly? What is he here for? What does he want for this planet and for this humanity?
Well, he says there are some basic human needs that must be met for every single person. Food, shelter, healthcare, and education. So that's nourishing food. That's effective healthcare when you're sick. Everybody gets sick sooner or later. A place that's safe, out of the weather, that's safe for people to live. Education, all the education needed for human development, because education is the crucible in which a life is formed. Whether it's education for a practical living or a philosophical career or whatever it is that is the natural expression of your individuality. So those are the basics that Maitreya has come to teach us to create as human rights all over the world.
And as yet, not one single country has managed to provide these for all of its citizens. So even though they're very simple sounding goals, they are immense. And imagine what people will be like when they are freed of all of those concerns.
Yes, and he has a plan. His plan is a global plan for sharing the resources of the earth so that everyone in the world will have these basic necessities of life. He says each country would be asked to make an inventory of what it needs and what resources it has in excess. All those excess resources from all the countries would be put into a pool from which any country in need could drink, so to speak, could access those resources. So he's not saying that you have to give everything that you have to a poor person, for example. He's simply saying what we need is different than what we might desire, and that you can live a perfectly happy, maybe even happier life with your needs met, as opposed to following those endless desires for bigger, more expensive items that you really don't need. And so think of the resources of the planet as belonging to humanity as a whole. It's very simple. And when Maitreya is inspiring humanity more openly, most people would respond from their hearts to that call.
Well, of course, it's going to mean a change in so many of the institutions we have these days. It's, money will no longer be as important. People won't be competing for it. Just so many changes would have to happen to enable that.
Yes, that's true. But when you have a teacher like Maitreya inspiring you, it doesn't look that difficult because of the fact that he would be inspiring all people everywhere. He would instill a cooperative spirit so that we would all be focused on what is best for the world, not so much what is best for me at any price. So it's that ability to inspire, plus the vision of all of the technological advances that are set to be humanity's future once we give up war, for example. Think of the technology of light that he talks about. That is an advanced solar energy program that our space brothers are working on right now. This program that will meet all of our energy needs with no pollution whatsoever. We will have the ability to literally clean up our pollution in a very short time and restore balance to nature. So there are so many wonderful benefits that are in store for humanity once we accept that we are interconnected with everyone on the planet, once we prefer cooperation over competition, and once we forego war entirely as a tool of foreign policy, these gifts, these abilities will be given to us, and it will solve so many fears for people everywhere that we can all take a deep breath and enjoy each other instead of being afraid of each other.
Well, of course, when that happens, we get to know one another better, and then we trust one another more, and then we collaborate.
Yes.
On this renewal of the world. In the magazine Share International, Maitreya has talked, about these priorities, and he says that the remediation of the environment, for example, could be, vastly, vastly accomplished within 25 years. So strong is her power of recuperation. So that's really hopeful.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And it's right there. All we have to do is love each other. And who can inspire the kind of trust and the kind of love that is needed, but someone with Maitreya's equipment, so to speak, with his consciousness, and he is the Lord of love. He embodies the love energy that makes the world go round. It's an extraordinary opportunity for humanity. And so our job is simply to prepare whoever will listen for this opportunity and try to inspire them to care about this.
Absolutely, and that's why we're doing it. You're listening, folks, to Share on the Air Radio, and we will be back with you after the break. At that time, Betsy will be filling us in on what is called Day of Declaration. Stay with us.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes.
Every night, when the skies are clear, a remarkable event can be witnessed. A UFO the size of 5 football fields is moving through the skies just like a star. It pulses, it blinks, it changes color. This spacecraft appeared before as the Star of Bethlehem. Find out what it all means. Visit shareontheairradio.org. That's shareontheairradio.org.
Looking for inspiration?
Want to be inspired?
Not sure where to go?
Find Mark and Kim every Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern on Inspired Living.
Topics will elevate consciousness and range from metaphysics to the human and social experience and all things spiritual.
Welcome to an inspired community that offers support, encouragement, and new ways of thinking. You are the inspired and the inspiration.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Are you ready to shift your energy, consciousness, and limiting beliefs? Join me, Shefali Burns, every Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern on Shifting with Shefali here on OMTimes Radio. Shift the blocks, limitations, and negative energies that have kept you from experiencing a life filled with joy, peace, love, abundance, and happiness. Are you ready to shift with Shefali? Are you ready to shine your brilliance?
Bringing a more conscious lifestyle to your world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back. We're with Betsy Whitfill today, speaking about why the presence of Maitreya matters. Betsy, you say that, Mr. Krem says that Maitreya plans, as the Lord of love, as the embodiment of God's love on this planet, Maitreya plans to give us all a great experience of love. Let's go into that.
Yes, the plan is that Maitreya will appear as a face on everyone's television screen, but he won't say anything. On that day, which we call Declaration Day, he will speak to everyone on the planet in his or her own language. Everyone over the age of 14 will hear his call to their divinity. This is a very personal experience that each of us will have. He will show each of us the meaning and purpose of our lives. And there will be such an outpouring of the love energy of God that many people will be healed, and we will be transformed. For some period of time after that, we will realize that humanity is one and that we are love and that we are loved by God. This is such a powerful experience. Again, just a small taste that some of us have had who are working with Share International. Those experiences melt your heart and you are never quite the same again. So on that day, humanity will experience love as a group, all together, and Maitreya will speak to us about our innermost needs. It will be a fabulous experience, and one, as Benjamin Krem says, that will go down in the history books of the world.
Let's hope it be so. We were going to put up an article by Benjamin Krem's master. Benjamin Krem is the chief purveyor of the information that we're talking about and has been the chief spokesman for Maitreya and the group of masters since way back in 1959. Now, he receives telepathically a message every month from his master, and one of them was called To Serve Anew, which is the master's description of how humanity will react to Day of Declaration, what we will feel like, how we will be different. So we were going to put that up on our Facebook page, Share on the Air Radio, and you can go have a look at it. The big question, of course, Betsy, is when is this going to happen? You say that Maitreya's appearance to us is imminent on television.
Yes. There have been many windows of opportunity, which is the term that defines opportunities for Maitreya to come forward fully, publicly, and have Declaration Day. That means that there are openings in the world that allow him to come forward without infringing humanity's free will. It's really important for people to understand that the human free will is sacrosanct to the masters. They are, from our perspective, very powerful, of course, but they totally respect our free will. They will never infringe, never push, never... some of us wish they would push more, but they will not push into our lives unless invited. So when windows of opportunities open, we say that Maitreya's Declaration Day or coming forward publicly is imminent, and we mean it each time. In the past, there have been quite a few of those, but then they have closed, and humanity was not ready, would not accept this great presentation. However, as Benjamin Krem's master wrote on November 14th of last year, just after the terrible Paris attacks, he says, painful as it has been for the people of France, the recent tragic event in Paris has opened the way for Maitreya to act sooner than would otherwise have been the case. Tragic as it is for so many, it has released his hands. Remember this and be ready for his manifestation. So apparently the world's response to those attacks have enabled Maitreya to see our sense of our oneness, and that we want a peaceful world, that we draw the line at this terrible terrorism in Paris, and even since then. So
the fact that people, there were so many testimonials on YouTube, on the news. There were so many people responding to this terrorism, responding to this massacre by saying enough is enough. We need to love. We need to be tolerant. We need to forgive. We need all of these kinds of things. Do these show to the masters that we are more and more ready? Yes. Maitreya watches daily to see how we are responding to events that humanity has created in the world, and he judges our readiness for his public appearance based on our desire for peace, for love, our coming together as one humanity. It really apparently was an extraordinary change in his sense, that it released his hands so that he would not infringe our free will. Right. We might not have time to go in too much in how the world will look after this Day of Declaration, but I'd like to just mention one of Mr. Krem's books in case we get cut off, called The Art of Cooperation, which gives quite good material on that topic, the art of cooperation, which will become so important once we're ready to work hand in hand. How do we see this going forward after the masters are truly and face to face walking among us? Yes, well, Maitreya says that humanity, each of us wants to relate. We don't want to be isolated. We don't do well when we isolate ourselves. So we want to join with others. We want to unify with those that think like we do. And he says that unity is the great need for humanity at the moment. And that the way to enable this wonderful sense of solid unity in humanity, which is what it's going to take to save the planet, is cooperation, by the magic of cooperation. So rather than in discussions saying, well, you're going to have to compromise, which to most of us means you're going to have to give up your very favorite thing if you're going to deal with me. You say, look, here is something we can do together. It will take all of us, and won't it be wonderful? And we will all subscribe to that goal. And in the process, magic happens. People make things work.
it's not a question of giving up something that you prize. It's a question of working with other people together to do something that's even greater for all of us. So that's the magic of cooperation. And Maitreya says that is the magic that will create the unity of enterprise that will enable humanity to totally rebuild the world.
In a fairly short amount of time.
Yes.
Once we all get together behind it. That's a future I can ascribe to.
Me too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I just want to let our listeners know that Maitreya has actually been working at his approach to humanity for quite some time now. In fact, he first came to London, England on July 19th, 1997. And if you go to the Facebook page, there is a history page that will be there for you to read all of the various windows of opportunity and vignettes from Maitreya's emergence. And we're putting that up online. And along with many other things we've talked about today. Next week, my co-host, Cielito Pascual, will be interviewing McNair Ezert. He is an ordained minister in the Methodist Church and works in nonprofits. And they will be exploring the distinction between the traditional view of the Christian second coming and the kind of information that we are bringing forth on the reappearance of the Masters of Wisdom and the Lord Maitreya. So, varying views on the second coming next week, same time, same station. Thank you, everyone, and welcome back.